What's going on, guys? It's Ken. I'm back with another video. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the crypto market and the, markets in general, including the stock market, and kind of just discussing what went on today and why things might have been down. So, keep in mind, there's always going to be a narrative. Narrative usually follows the price, not the other way around. First off, if we take a look at Nvidia had a crazy day today. They were down, I'm pretty sure, at one point 17%. I think they closed the day down. Yeah, they closed the day pretty much 16%, 17%, which is pretty crazy, all right? Basically, if you guys haven't heard of Deepseek, this new AI model, they basically were able to create a model for around $6 million that's better than ChatGPT, uses less computing power, and is just overall more efficient. I mean, think about it. ChatGPT was pouring billions of dollars into this project, and they've been buying all these NVIDIA GPUs. That's why NVIDIA is a huge part of it. And not only that, Deepseek hasn't even been using the new hardware. They've been using old GPUs. So on top of that, it only cost them $6 million pretty much to make this AI model. It's open source. So I just think that given those facts, it kind of spooked the market because people are like, well, what the hell is going on? This DeepSeek model was made so easily and cheap. It's not using a lot of computing power, as much computing power. And then look at ChatGPT, OpenAI. They're spending billions and billions of dollars. Like, are they wasting money? Like, is it all just, is there any point in So that's pretty much the whole thing. I just think it's a pretty crazy story, to be honest. And on top of that, too, apparently there's some security concerns with DeepSeek, and people's Gmails were getting hacked, I heard. But anyway, it sent the markets down today. Let's take a look at the S&P. S&P bounced back, actually. But it's still, it's still at 6,000. At one point today, it was 5,900. Even the Nasdaq actually had a worse day. Nasdaq's at 21,100. But when it comes to Bitcoin, though, Bitcoin did bounce back a little bit. The low for the day was 97,000. So it fell pretty decently. Right now it's at 102K. So it came back up. But you guys got to remember, though, even 97K, 102K, the difference is so small. It's really not a big difference. I mean, Bitcoin was at 97K. The last time it was at 97K was January 16th, like 10 days ago. All right. So it's really, I think people tend to forget where the price was even just like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Like, but speaking of Bitcoin, though, this could be the start of a correction. I don't want to be the one that keeps calling a correction, but if you take a look at this chart from Into the Cryptoverse, shout out to Ben. He makes great content. You guys should go check out his channel and check out this website. But Bitcoin has not had a 30% decline or 30% correction when accounting for daily closes in 812 days. This is the longest it's been. Before then, it was 430 days. So it just goes to show like how long it's been. It's been like 2.5 years since Bitcoin has had a 30% correction, which is pretty crazy to think about. Pretty sure the last time it says was November 2022 at the bottom of the bear market. So anyway, if we go back to the chart, we can see that in prior post-halving years, 2021 and 2017, you'll see that a January correction is pretty common. And it is like in 2021, there was a, look at that, 30% correction. If we go back to 2017, you're going to see that, pretty sure it was actually a larger correction, if I'm not mistaken. It was quick, but it was like 34%. So the past two post-halving years, post-election years, Bitcoin has had a 30% correction in January. Now, January is almost over. So I'm not saying that it has to happen in January, but it just goes to show what could happen. You know, you never know. Something could happen this week that sends the price shooting down. Who really knows? But if Bitcoin has a 30% correction from where it is now, or from the high, I'm not going to take it from the wick. I'm going to take it from the daily close, especially because that chart on the website was only accounting for closes. If you take it from daily closes, 30% down will bring you to 74K. All right. Now, 74K seems scary, but I mean, even if you were to draw a trend line, technically, you know, it wouldn't, if it went down to 74K, it wouldn't even be retesting this trend line. I think the more scarier scenario would be if it kept going down and tested this trend line. Because obviously the longer it takes to reach it, the lower the trend line is going. I'm not a huge fan of trend lines, but this is one that's kind of stood out to me. And right now, where we are, the trend line is around 63, 64K. By the time Bitcoin would go to it, it would get a little lower into the 60s. But the reason why I'd be a little concerned was because if it's going to hold it or not. If Bitcoin doesn't hold the trend line, if it goes down to it, I think there's a bigger... Then you can kind of start to argue like, all right, are we having a left translated peak or are we going to have a normal right translated peak cycle? But I don't think we need to worry about that yet until we get at least a 30% correction and go back down to this level. Now, interestingly enough, this 30% mark actually is around the high from March of 2024. So I think it's possible that it goes down to around 74, 75K and then maybe hold. And then possibly just keep going back up and we have a normal post-halving year. I think it's very possible we do that. Timing it, I don't know. You know, the correction can happen maybe February. If I were to guess, I would guess that if Bitcoin's going to go down to 74, 75K before it keeps going higher and puts in a new all-time high, I'm going to guess that it'll happen in mid to late February. And the reason why is because, you know, first of all, one thing that can actually start it this week is the Fed. So we have an FOMC meeting this week on Wednesday, January 29th. All right, so I think it's pretty obvious and pretty certain that the Fed is going to hold rates. I think it's like a 98, 99% chance they're going to hold rates. But if they don't start QE and they continue quantitative tightening, that might not be a good thing. It's going to be something to look out for. And in relation to that, I also think ETH Bitcoin, and I don't mean to really start going all over the place because I wanted to just talk about Bitcoin in this video, but I will also mention I do feel like ETH Bitcoin is not going to bottom until quantitative easing starts. I think if Jerome Powell and the Fed on Wednesday say that they're starting QE, I strongly believe that ETH Bitcoin will bottom and start to move up for the rest of the year. But that's what I'm convinced of. Until they start QE, ETH Bitcoin theoretically can still go lower. which is hard to believe. But, you know, people back in 2022 when ETH Bitcoin was 0.08, nobody wanted to believe that it would go down to 0.03. But now that it's at 0.03, I feel like nobody wants to really believe that it can go back up. And everybody's saying that ETH is dead. They're looking at XRP. When you look at 2019, when did ETH Bitcoin bottom? When did it bottom? Well, let's look at total assets. What is total assets? Well, total assets is the total assets of the Fed balance sheet, right? ETH Bitcoin bottomed the exact day or the exact week that the Fed started QE. And if we go to now, present time, the Fed hasn't started QE yet. You know, the balance sheet is still going down. So until they start QE and it reverses, I think ETH Bitcoin can still go down. And I'm going to be fully transparent. Back in the end of 2022, I was convinced that ETH Bitcoin was going to go down to like 0.04, 0.035 maybe. Just because of monetary policy, not because ETH is a bad asset. And, you know, as it was going down, it took a while. But I kept looking at 2019, the same thing with the total assets of the Fed. And I will say, I mean, I did not expect ETH Bitcoin to go all the way down to 0.029. I didn't expect that. And frankly, I didn't expect it to take this long on the bottom. We're in January of the post-halving year. So it's definitely taking a little bit. But at the same time, QE still has never started. So that could just be what we're really waiting for. But, you know, nobody's going to want to believe that ETH Bitcoin can recover because it's at 0.03. But when it was at 0.08, nobody wanted to believe that it would go down. So it's something to consider. I don't think ETH is dead. I own ETH. I really, you know, I own ETH. I want to make that known. I own Bitcoin too. So, but back to Bitcoin, yeah. This is just something I'm looking out for. I'm gonna be looking out for this 75K or 70K range. You know, where the 30% mark is. But it's always possible that Bitcoin does not get a 30% correction, at least anytime soon. I think it'll happen eventually, but maybe not anytime soon. You know, it's possible that we get good labor market prints, but I just think Wednesday is going to be an interesting day. If they start QE, then I think it'll be good for risk assets as a whole. That might actually send Bitcoin to new all-time highs. I'll say that. I feel like it could. But that's pretty much all I'm going to talk about for this video. I just really wanted to talk about today specifically what went on in the broader markets and also what I'm looking at for Bitcoin. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know in the comment section below. Make sure to check out all the links in the description below. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.